Many found footage films follow the same stale formula. A spooky place is introduced, and fame-seeking investigators are going to try and capture proof of paranormal activity. Over the course of an hour and a half, each of the characters is picked off, and the film ends with a spooky glimpse of a ghoul. This month, we looked at 3 found footage/horror mockumentary films, and most of us have come to hate the genre. The film that we are going to look at this week proves that stellar execution is often all that's required to bring a formula back to life. Welcome to our discussion of Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum, a movie so spooky, it may finally be the found footage movie that brings us all together.
It's time for Spooky of the Week! We're back! It's time
for the final time.
For the final chapter of Spooky of the Week ends. Evil dies tonight.
I'm so glad to be done watching these terrible found footage horror movies.
The bit that Sam Slade and I have been hating every second of this has not been a bit. Like, it has actually been hard every single week. Why is it so hot today?
Oh, that reminds me. We forgot to light the candle.
Oh.
Light that candle, dude.
Oh my god, it's too hot for fire.
If you don't like that, dude, we can't do Spooky of the Week.
Oh my god.
I don't know why I said week. What did I say?
This week we watched Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum.
So Sam Slade, why did you recommend
recommend?
Oh,
I recommended this movie because
Kevin told me to recommend
Why did you tell Sam Slade to recommend Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum?
this movie's very freaky. I loved it, and you'll like it because it's Korean and it's just it was spooky. And then that eventually came around when we were talking about what to do for the last one, and so now here we are.
I don't have any interesting thoughts going in. Keegan.
I was told by Kevin that it was very good, and the second half was just one giant scare.
So thoughts going in, I was just like, let's get this over with.
My actual thoughts going in were, this whole thing, I'm gonna hate this again, this is gonna suck, it's just gonna be another one.
I wasn't thinking that, I was just like, alright, one more, let's do it one more time. We're gonna do it again,
Yeah.
and I don't have to do this ever again.
Yeah.
Because we're not, they're banned from Spooky of the Week, they're banned.
So sorry, next year we're not doing Cannibal Holocaust, we're not doing
all your recommendations that you keep putting in.
Because I'm not watching a single one of these ever again. I'll watch another documentary again, but if there's anything spooky or they say it's spooky, I'm not watching.
Sam Slade, what is the plot of Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum?
A bunch of YouTubers/streamers that are going to a haunted asylum because they go to haunted places all the time, I guess. Their goal is to get 1 million views.
Yeah.
No matter how scary it gets.
They look at the numbers early on, they're like, because they have like a group, and they're like, this person did a stream, they got 50,000 viewers, and it made them $100,000 or something like that. They're all like, if we can get this up to 1 million viewers, or 100,000 viewers, we can make $1 million or something like that. And so that's their goal, is to just do the craziest stream.
They have an Avengers-like team up.
Yes.
There are multiple
But
different.
some of them are newer people, some of them that have done other stuff kind of like this, and they all kind of come together.
Team up with the guy from Squid Game.
As they're going through and doing this investigation, they find out that it's really haunted. And there's lots of spooks,
Scary
spooks about
things.
I thought overall it was decent. I wouldn't say it was as bad as the other ones. I liked the ending. I didn't like reading it, but I knew I was going to have to read it.
Guys, that was as close to Sam Slade saying I loved this film as we are ever going to get.
I was actually going to out of the 4, so I didn't like the 3 other movies. This one I would say I kind of liked.
I had very few notes because their notes were basically just saying, I like this movie.
He pulls up his paper. I liked this movie is the first thing.
The characters were likable. I enjoyed seeing them on screen. I see when they talk to each other, I was like, oh, those characters are having interactions. And they seem decently...
This might seem like a weird compliment if this is the first video you're seeing in this series, but if this isn't, then you'll know...
There's a lot of backstory.
This is a big arc for us, saying, yeah, there was things in it that I liked. It sounds really basic. I promise you it's not if you've seen the full timeline of
the characters were well written.
There's like character arcs within the movie.
I was scared more than one part.
There's actually a 3-act structure.
Yeah.
I really like the atmosphere. My other note is it gets...
It does.
There's a point
Well, that's the good part.
Is not afraid to take his time when it's with some of the kills. Like the movie just slows down and takes its time, and that was very refreshing and very nice. I didn't have any moments that were quite as tense as the ending in Horror in the High Desert. But there was a
comes
lot
back
of
to
Listen,
horror.
dude, that ending is creepy, even though that movie sucks.
No,
The
I
ending
know.
is very
I'm not
creepy.
laughing because I disagree. I'm laughing because for Keegan, it always comes back to horror.
Well, this movie did not get as creepy, but it was consistently very creepy.
I disagree with you. I think that this movie scared me the most out of all the movies that we watched. Like, I was genuinely creeped out, and as opposed to, like, Horror in the High Desert has that one moment, and it lasts for, like, you know, that's all a decent amount of time, like 20 minutes or so. It's that whole end of the movie.
Last chunk.
From the moment like Charlotte and the other girl leave to the end of the movie, I was like, the whole time I was just like,
Which time-wise is always way longer than you think. Like, if you had paused at that moment, you're like, there's so much of the movie. Like, it's all one scene.
It got really creepy, and it was consistently creepy.
didn't reach that high.
But it didn't hit the
level.
high. However, it was consistently creepy for a much longer period.
Yeah. The lows weren't as low. I would say the movie drags in the early part of it.
First of all, the movie is short.
Yes.
It is like a tight, like, hour and 95 minutes.
Parts
hour
that
and
drag.
we all have tough experience.
It is 90 billion degrees. This room is currently an oven.
It's 195 degrees in here. That's why I was saying.
The movie has this period in the beginning that I think kind of drags, but in my opinion, it drags in a good way because you're getting this sense of like the bond between these characters. Some of them are just meeting each other for the first time, and some of them don't trust other ones, and so you're kind of getting this dynamic building between the group. Even though I felt like some parts
makes
could
the
have been
characters
cut,
feel like real people.
It made them feel like real people
Instead of it just being like characters
Gary-
talking about
Gary
other
is a
people.
survivalist.
And Gary is a survivalist, and he would never go into the woods without his dog and not come back.
Yes.
Well, by the time they get to the asylum, there's already this, like, the tension was just palpable enough in the atmosphere, just the sheer thought of going to an asylum, and it is dark, and it is empty. By itself is just enough to get you to that halfway point. You're like, okay, well, I don't want to go in there. Period. I just don't want to go in there. That just doesn't sound fun to me.
It's creepy and wet in there.
You know, it's creepy and it's wet, and like I just don't want to be in there. Also, it's huge. Like the fact that it's just this huge place
What-
just makes it feel so empty and large.
I was like looking up details about it, and I saw that it had a $2 million budget, which struck me as a little odd because normally these movies have like a $10 budget. And when the movie started, I was like, what did they spend that on? But then the second they get to the asylum, you're like, I know what they
$2
spent
million
it on.
If I recall what Kevin had said, they had to rebuild some of the set.
No, they did
Actual-
because there's a couple scenes on the exterior that they did that was shot at the actual asylum. But inside, basically, they did not have, of course, any rights or any way to get in. So they looked at the layout and they recreated it set-wise, and that's kind of pretty much where the bulk of the money went. That and then like all the various camera equipments that all the characters had, because they had multiple cameras going.
Yeah.
So they had to buy a lot of equipment.
Those
So, like,
camera
that's
rigs that
mainly
they
where
had were awesome. The one on your face.
the one on your face, the one you
forward.
see. I was like, that's a brilliant like little idea for a found footage because you see their reaction and what they see constantly. You don't have to.
It also
Well,
leads to
figure
a
out.
really good scare later on
Yes.
when you see the scariest thing on planet Earth.
I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for you know what? Anybody that
Whoa!
That's a clean.
This is the
recommendation.
first time in literally a year any of us have said that.
clean recommendation.
I would recommend
I would
that.
recommend. Well, I told you last week I'm not going to do any of the caveats anymore. It's either no
I
or
decided
yes.
that at Lake Mungo. That's why I said no. I
No or
decided
yes.
that. No or
I would give this a general recommend. I think general audiences would
I'm
enjoy
so
it.
glad
It's
I
a creepy
recommended this movie.
Yeah, no, obviously it's a recommendation for me because Sam Slade recommended it, so I trust everything that he has
This
to
is
say.
true. This
Kevin
is
trusts
true.
me with his life.
I had seen it before, but I only liked it after he recommended it. So.
Well, yeah, we all
Yeah,
base
go.
our opinions here internally on what Sam Slade does or doesn't like. So if Sam we always ask Sam Slade.
I changed my mind on Antrim in that review. You can go back and see that
like the
review. I
Greek
changed my
groundhog.
mind.
I check my shadow.
We should all I 100% would recommend it. Like, I wanted to do a bit. It's hard to do a bit. So this movie did like almost everything I've been complaining about with all of these movies. Like, you can't have scenes. There's no characters.
This is a little more found footage than it is.
I would say it's straight
fake
up
documentary.
The special effects are really good. Like, the actual scary moments are done really well.
One of the other things I wanted to compliment it on is, speaking of just cutting away dull moments, is they are cutting between characters.
Yes.
Because in their stream they're like, oh, it would be boring.
The way it's structured
and
is
it-
really smart
and it
because
makes
it's
sense
found
that they
footage,
split
but
them
they have a live director because he's streaming it. He's literally in the control room editing it, which is really sweet because it's a creative way.
You're
of,
following what he's showing you.
You don't have to ask yourself, why is this being edited? Like, what is this happening? It like
Why
it all
are they
makes
splitting up? Because they don't believe it's real.
Yeah, they don't believe it's real. But yeah,
And they're making it more entertaining for the audience.
solid it gets the Uncle Mickey Spooky of the Week approval. It is very scary. I would say
It's got a pretty low score too on IMDb.
I don't even-
what I've learned is that found footage is like really a hit or miss genre with people. Like you have people that really
even
love
even when it's hit, even when they're like, admittedly, this is the single greatest movie of all time that's ever been found footage. And that's why it has a 6.1 on IMDb.
Yeah.
That's typically how
It does everything right. Honestly, I can't think of anything that they did wrong.
So I'm only going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, 5 out of 10. Yeah.
the scariest thing to me was just that girl.
Eyes just go black and she's like, that's it.
that happened and
Forget it, she's dead.
I
Get out
turned
of
into
here.
a little girl.
It
and I
was
like,
scary enough that it happened once, and then it kept happening. And it's like, oh no, she's back.
No,
she's back.
Stop cutting to her.
And they do some really creative like horror that's not just like jump scares. Charlotte, she's running away from the spooky girl, and she runs into the tent, and then she opens the door, and she's just back in the asylum. So
Not only in the asylum, she is in the room that they have
and,
not
like,
broken into yet, and you're like,
When that happened, I was
God.
like, she's in the room, right? She's in that room.
And then,
You
and
haven't
then,
seen
and
that
then in the
room.
next scene, they hear her scream in from the previous scene, and you're like,
Yes.
oh my god, no.
there's weird time dilations happening. Like it's
The
not
The guy
just
seeing himself.
The guy
in
sees
window.
himself in the mirror, he's like, what the hell? Goes inside, looks outside, sees himself. Oh, no.
that whole sequence when like after when he's looking at himself outside and he turns the camera, he flips the screen backwards to see the
He's
ghost
like-
behind him.
Or when they're in the room and you can just see the hands sometimes start reaching around the face, and then like they just go away.
I know it's a found footage movie, and that means that everyone probably is going to die at the end. I was a little bummed that everybody died, and that's just because I like movies where people live at the end. I like there being a main character that survives by the end of it, and so I was a little sad that specifically towards the halfway point, I was like, oh, I think that girl's gonna end up being our main character. Like this girl and guy duo that they've kind of neglected, but they were kind of the main characters in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so I was a little disappointed that they didn't do more with them. But
Yeah, I'm always, with any horror movie, I'm a little disappointed when that's the ending, when it's just like, there's no
And then they all die.
Because I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it's just like, okay, then this is what it was building for, is that, it's just,
Yeah. No, I get it.
that's not a character of someone just dying, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like
I had like a kind of a mixed thing. It was a mix between I really loved it and it's great, but there's a little part of me that was like, oh, but if it was a little bit better, it would have made it for me. Like that, like it would have made like that much farther. I would have gotten a half star more. Is they mentioned earlier on in the movie that they found the lady who ran the asylum, that she had just hung herself inexplicably. And that allegedly that when they found her, that she had been hanging for so long that her neck had actually begun to stretch.
like a.
I looked it up, and I was like, is that just like an urban legend, or does that actually happen? Yes, it happens, and it is scary AF. And so I'm like, oh, and the reason why it doesn't happen a lot at home, like if you just hang yourself, is because normally you don't
do it at home, kids.
It's like normally you don't-
if you're doing this at home, kids, you might find that you're not getting the
If
stretch
you want that
that you
stretch
want.
effect when
That
your
stretch
loved
factor.
ones find you,
Well,
you
okay.
don't want to do it at home.
Like,
Look,
you
Kevin,
don't-
give us the tutorial.
Well,
You looked
like,
it up.
you don't break your neck. You hang because normally you're in your house. You don't have enough to
Are you not writing this down? You're
snap.
Oh, dude, I already know this.
And then of course when the clearly a hanging lady shows up at the end behind the guy, I was like, is her neck gonna be stretched? That'd be so fucking scary. And then it wasn't. I mean, it was still clearly the gal, and she was being hung, and so it was freaky enough to scare the shit out of me. But just that extra little detail would have freaked the fuck out of me just that much more. So that was like one little thing that I was like, oh, that was great, but it could have been like amazing if they had done that. But other than that, all the parts that were supposed to be scary really freaked me out. Yeah, and I love how at the end they're like, yeah, guys, we have this holy water or whatever, and oh no, things are happening, and then the last thing you see is just the holy water start to boil and go away, and you're like, oh god, oh my god, it's not just ghosts, dude, there's evil in that.
Well, yeah, one thing I actually appreciated about this movie is that it did a plot twist that Lake Mungo also does, and I thought it was more effective in this movie.
I was gonna bring up that like it's a thing that shows up in a lot of found footage slash just like whatever.
I was
like, horror
faking
movies
it.
Where it's like I was faking it, and then it adds validity
ends up being
to
real,
the actual scares when it's like I'm not faking this though.
Yeah. Because in this movie, the layout of the setup and then reveal makes a lot more sense. You know that it's a fake before the rest of the characters do. And so there's two guys that specifically are like kind of in on it.
You can imagine that it could be faked when you go into it. You're like, oh, because a lot of streaming things like this,
Yes.
they'll kind of spice it up. You're almost
They kept throwing wigs everywhere.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
almost expecting
I mean,
that
it's the
going
same
in.
wig, like you see it and it drops down in the ceiling and you're
Like,
like,
oh,
and then you see
that's
the same
scary.
thing and it's in the
Oh, okay.
water pool. Yeah, they set up that these guys are faking it, and then when it starts being real, those two guys are the most scared. Like, they're not the most, but like, you know, they're
But
just
they're
scared
like,
shitless.
that's fucked, right?
Well, the other effective part is it lets you know and it sets up what they're going to fake.
Yes.
And then when it goes to that part where they're supposed to fake it and it goes in a different direction, you realize, oh, shit is fucked.
Yes.
This is not supposed to be how it's faked.
It lets you in on it a little bit.
And then when you see the other guys freaking out, it's like, oh yeah, this went off the rails. And also the director had already figured out that shit was haunted.
Yeah, well, and I like that it keys you into the spooky stuff with the director first, because he's the one that first experiences real paranormal stuff, and he's just sitting there like,
This is fine.
we're gonna keep going.
When he sees the writing on the wall change,
Yes,
and he's just
he
like,
looks at that and he lies to
That
them.
part was awesome because
It
he's
was
just
so-
like they're lying. It's the same words. They don't know what they're talking about. And
what
it's
I'm-
literally
No, it's the
on
same
screen.
words. Don't do that. It's like, you know.
This is what I'm talking about.
You know this place is cursed
movie
for
has
real.
characters like that do things, and I
They
know.
make decisions, and other characters are affected by those decisions. you know?
And it's such a. It seems so normal. Like you're sitting
course,
there thinking,
of course.
all movies always do that. The characters.
Have you seen a movie called Get Out?
For these mockumentary found footage movies, this is so refreshing.
Oh yeah, they throw that out in the trash.
That little moment is more character than like all three of the previous movies that we've had that we've watched so far like have combined. Granted, I am biased. I love those types of characters, like the boss that will stop at nothing to get what they want. It's an archetype that we love a lot, but I really like that moment. I loved his character.
I thought it was really funny when because I was sitting there like, man, there's a bunch of horror stuff going on. There's 4 characters, but isn't there 2 other characters? And they just cut back. They're still just trying to cut into the door. And they have no idea what's going on.
They have
There's all this
no
crazy
idea.
stuff happening. They're just like
Because they're on a totally different floor
trying to
than
get into the
everybody
most
else.
dangerous room. And the characters are like, stop doing that! Stop doing that!
one of my favorite scares was when the director's looking at footage, and there's footage showing all 6 of the actors.
that's
and he stops and he's like,
Who is filming this?
and he's like, how are all 6 people on screen together? And he's just like, fuck.
Which is funny because that is an actual shot before, and I remember like that shot standing out,
You
to
don't
me, not
even think
realizing
about it. You
that
don't
it
even
was
realize
standing
that
out for
it's a-
like why it was
Yeah,
standing out.
Exactly.
Even though that stands out and it's weird, like you're not thinking about it because you're so accustomed to there being 1,000 camera angles in every scene. So it's like it's weird, but you don't know why it's weird. And then you see that and you're just like, I don't know how symbolic this is, but we are running out of candle.
Me and Kevin talked about this.
There's
before,
literally
where
one
we
lit
just
left.
have enough.
The other one.
Yeah.
We just have enough to get through
Yeah.
the end of Spooky of the Week. That's it.
Final
Yeah,
thoughts?
I don't think we got to harp on it. Just go watch this movie. Like,
watch
don't watch any of the other ones. Just watch this one.
That's fair.
It will scare the poop out of you. I watched
let
it
it.
late last night by myself, and it was a great experience, like just being alone. In
Oh
my
yeah,
room,
no, same.
just-
I just watched it in my room with all the lights on because I felt like it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I have not been like locked myself in a room like at night and just watch a scary movie, and I was like, I'm not going to bed.
Thanks for watching. This has been a Spooky of the Week.
This has been this
Spooky
year's
for the week.
2022.
We did it, everybody.
2022.
4 found footage movies.
Everyone thought it was impossible, and I was like, "What are you
Everyone
talking
thought
about? How
we
is
wouldn't
it
do
not possible?" And then once I started, I was like, "This is impossible."
Yeah.
Next year, we're not doing found footage.
We're
They're
doing a
banned.
theme. We're doing a theme.
Yeah, the theme is Rocky movies.
Thank you guys for watching.
We love doing these. They're a lot of fun every
I
October.
hope you guys
so-
enjoyed Spooky of the Week. We're done with the spooky movies for this year.
No more.
We only watch 4 a year. So
Yeah, no, that's it. I can't do it anymore.
uh,
I can only watch movies where people
See you
just
later.
talk.
bye.